Hey, I'm Ben, and alongside Ryan we have created the game Gridwalker for assignment 2 of 159361. Gridwalker is a 3D platformer in the same vein as games such as SEUM and A Story About My Uncle. The player magically got trapped in a simulation only known as the Grid, and needs to run, jump, grapple, and navigate through obstacles to find a way out. Firstly, as do all platformers, we needed to incorporate the most basic of typical platforming mechanics. These include moving, sprinting, jumping, and crouching. These basic mechanics are implemented using the player controller script, where we check for inputs and execute functions based on the input. Alongside basic movement, we have basic camera controls. The player cam script checks for mouse movements and rotates the camera accordingly. The camera isn't directly connected to the player, but instead links to a camera position and orientation object inside the player, helped by the move camera script. Throughout the game, the player picks up a gun known as the gun. This gun has 3 mechanics: shooting, grappling, and reeling. Shooting functionality is done through the gun shoot script. It checks if the player wants to shoot, isn't grappling, and isn't in the process of recoil, which acts as a timer. Next, both grappling and reeling come hand in hand. Grappling is done through the grapple script, where it sends a raycast and creates a joint alongside a line renderer if it connects with an object tagged grapple hook, which are pink spheres. Reeling can be done through orange spheres, and allows the player to reel in and out. This can result in some crazy movement.
We also had to include mechanics related to interactable objects within levels. These include trigger zones and collisions, which lead to resets, buttons, targets, wall runs, and ladders. A simple reset script was created for anything that resets the character, reloading the scene. Buttons and targets have their own respective scripts, which have public arrays allowing them to be easily connected to other buttons and objects during level creation. These two interactables are slightly different, as buttons will either stay active forever or only when stood on, while targets contain a timer which will deactivate after the time set. The mechanics for wall runs and ladders are implemented within the player controller script, with trigger boxes to check whether the player is on a runnable wall or a ladder. These two interactables work similarly, removing gravity from the player and changing the player's velocity so they don't fly off the wall or ladder, and only allowing them to move in 2 directions while inside the trigger box. However, the mechanics for wall runs required a bit more functionality to make the movement feel more real, so we added a downward force, camera tilt, and used the wall and player's orientation to allow the player to jump towards the direction that they are facing. Some mechanics were unused in our final game, however may be added if we make future improvements. These include a low gravity zone and a breakable floor. The low gravity zone used a simple script that can increase the player's jump force, and the breakable floor also used its own script that will destroy the object attached when the player falls onto it while crouching. We used a test scene to develop and improve our movement and player interactions with the environment, along with creating assets. Here we adjusted variables related to the player movement in different states, and played with the interactables to come up with ideas on how to improve the game. The test scene proved to be helpful when it came to level design, as many of the ideas for each level came from playing around with the wall runs and grapple hooks we had placed on our test scene. We introduced some of these ideas in early levels, which act as the tutorial for the game, and later levels require some familiarity with these mechanics to progress. This causes a progressive increase in difficulty as the player continues through each level.
The levels are surrounded by a meshy cube background. We wanted to make the player feel encapsulated within the environment, which wouldn't feel right with just a skybox. Below the player is fog, making them feel like the unknown is below them if they fall. The levels incorporate a lot of non-grid towers, which when touched hurt the player, causing them to reset back to the start of the level. These towers were added to flesh out the surrounding area. The menu is designed to be easy to navigate and get you straight in. The 3 main options are play, which sends you to the level select screen, keybinds, and quit. Keybinds are managed and changed through the script Keybind Manager. It initially loads default binds and includes functions for saving the keybinds and replacing other keybinds if one is in use. The Keybind UI script listens for inputs when a keybind button is pressed, runs the Keybind Manager scripts accordingly, and updates the menu. The Keybind Manager is set to not be destroyed when changing scenes, so it allows the player controller in every scene to reference it. Music is also implemented in this way, where it changes the track depending on what scene is loaded, but if a scene is refresh, it doesn't also refresh the playing track. Our music is all copyright free and is created by Panda Beats. Also implemented are basic royalty free sounds for shooting and grappling. That was a basic rundown and demo of Gridwalker. Thank you for watching.